Okay, jetzt kommen wir zum zweiten Vortrag von Herrn Voorburg, der als Functional Application Manager und Webarchivar arbeitet. Das ist eine Selbstbeschreibung von stoischer Kürze, ähnlich der Kürze der Annotationszeile von Pelagius. Herr Voorburg zeigt uns aber, was ein Mensch, der es will, im Web tun kann, in einer außerordentlich eindrucksvollen Form, die vieles schon umgesetzt hat, worüber andere noch lange nachdenken oder nachgedacht haben und partiell auch noch nachdenken werden. Herr Voorburg, Sie sind dran.
Okay, danke. Okay, yeah. Like I was introduced, I'm going to give a presentation about a project which is a hobby project. Indeed, I work for the Dutch National Library, and I started working there as a web archivist, so I became quite handy in getting data from various websites and deal with them. But nowadays I also work as the, you could say, owner of the metadata system of the Dutch National Library. So that's something about my background, but this is about a hobby project. And the story begins, in a sense, with my children. This picture was taken a few years ago. That was about when my project started. It started with them. Because when you have children, you want to do fun things with them and you want to learn them things. So this, it's not a pretty picture. I took it from Street View. Couldn't find anything better, but what you see here is it's not really visible, although there is a road sign that tells you there is an ancient fort. It's not Roman, it's not even that old. It's a 19th century fort. And it's a very exciting place to go with your kids. There's things you can crawl into, and it's a very exciting place. So I went there a lot. But then I learned there was also Roman history at that site. There wasn't only a 19th century fort, but it was also a Roman fort. But you couldn't really see anything from it, or it was at least not obvious where the Roman remains were. And that fascinated me. I wanted to be able to see what was there. I wanted to be able to see something like, yeah, in this image. I wanted to be able to see the location of the castle and the road to the other places, and I wanted to see where the vicus was. And that was what I wanted to obtain. So I started, well, first of all, I started searching the internet a lot. What is there to be found about my own environment on the internet? And one of the first sources I came across was on Wikipedia. There were pages on Germania Inferior, and there was also a part of this image, the Tabula Peutingeriana. It was the most, it was, I think, the most detailed information I came across when I just started. So I started to play with that information to obtain a sense of spatial sense of the area. And a fun thing would be, I thought, is to have a kind of a route planner to see, wait, when you live here in the area of Vexio and you want to go to Forum Hadriani, which is current day Voorburg, which is my last name, how would I travel? Would I travel through the northern route along the Limes, or would I travel another way? So I just gathered some data and I played with it, and I made a very simple route planner using data, using an algorithm I also found on Wikipedia. And it was very much fun. And I thought, well, it would be nice if you could find data on all the places that are on the Tabula Peutingeriana, but I thought, no, that's impossible. That would take too much work. But then I bumped into data that was published by Richard Tolbert. And he had published the connections of all places found on the Tabula Peutingeriana. And I already had a route planner system, so the one thing I had to do was to import that data into the algorithm, into the data structure I had. And so in one day work, I had a route planner for the whole Roman Empire. That was very exciting, particularly the first time I asked it, I want to go from Feccio to Rome. What places should I pass? And then it gave me a list of places. It was very, very exciting. So that created a lot of energy for me to work on the road planner, and I wanted to find the geolocations of the roads of the cities. I didn't have them, so it was a lot of work, and I wanted to have a nice interface. That was a lot of work, but it resulted in this website. I think it's a very nice website, but it's not what I wanted to do or what I wanted to see. What I wanted to have was something more, well, you could say simple perhaps. I just wanted to have it on my mobile phone. I just wanted to be able to see where am I now and where was the fort and where was everything in Roman days. So I created, to start with, something that, like this, a very simple HTML5 web page. And the data that is shown on the page comes from simple static files with all, So when I wanted to add a point or a road, I had to edit static files by hand, just a text file I had to edit. But that wasn't really handy for me to edit the data, so I thought, well, maybe I should get a database behind it, and it's much easier to edit the data. Hey, and when I put the database behind it, I can open it up for other people. That would be nice. Others can use it too, add data too. So I started thinking about a way to do that. So I created a list of requirements. Well, in hindsight, I must say, because when I started, I didn't have a proper list, but in hindsight, it was something like this. What I wanted to do, it should be primarily a map, because I wanted to get a sense of the locations, of the areas. There should be categorized markers on it, and lines, like roads, for example. And there should be lemmas, text behind it, but it's basically about the map. And I want it to be accessible by the general public. And I don't like borders because, when you talk about the Romans, you talk about all kinds of countries, languages, and it's a bit. I think it's sad that people are working very hard to put information for people who are native to a certain language, but others can't read it. It's very sad. So I wanted to create a system that when somebody adds a marker to it, it will be added to any language, accessible by everybody. People I talked about this idea said you really need version management, so I worked on that. And of course I wanted to be in the spirit of Wikipedia, open source and open data. That's why I considered using the MediaWiki software, but there was a problem. I thought maybe it's not true, but I'm not a specialist, I'm not even a programmer. But a problem I think with Wikipedia is when somebody in Germany creates a great page on a fort on the Limes, then it's not automatically updated in the Dutch page. Not even the location, while that's not language dependent. And locations were the main thing for me, so I didn't see a good way to use MediaWiki for it. And the other thing is, I wanted to have primarily markers on a map, and then you need very structured data input. And I didn't see a way how I could use MediaWiki to enforce that kind of input. So I skipped the idea, but I thought, well, it would be cool to have just wiki text formatting. And I did a small study of that, but I couldn't see how I could get the code of MediaWiki to work independent of the rest of the code. So I skipped that too, and I decided to create my own tool. I couldn't find any alternatives. I created a custom tool, of course, not only for mobile, but also for desktop. I used some general internet tools. Instead of wiki text, I selected the CK editor. It's quite easy to use. And it had to be multi-language. And the data, since I work in a library and there's a lot of talk about open data, sharing data, one of the things I wanted to do is to have also the data behind the map available in an open format, preferably JSON or XML. So that's available in that format, and others can build services on the data that Wiki publishes. It's also, when you do a search, you can download it as a KML file. And since a few weeks, there's also a JavaScript widget available, so you can include the map on your own website. And the code is also available on GitHub. Now, most of you probably have seen the website, I guess, I hope. This is just a view from the Trier area. You can see in purple there are a lot of villas, in yellow there are temples. And when you click on a marker, then this page comes up. As you can see, there are also images of the area. And I've been thinking about that for a long time. There should be a way to upload images, but it would be quite complex to program in a good way. But then I thought a trick to get images on my site by using the Panoramio service. I just asked the Panoramio service, hey, do you have any images of this area? And usually when you go to a Roman site, there will be Roman images. So it's not always Roman related, but quite often it is. Here's another view of the map, a bit zoomed out. And here it displays the background tiles that Elton also mentioned that are created by Johan Aalfeld. So that's basically based on Pleiades data. Okay, now you've seen it. How is it used in practice? Well, there are about 70 unique visitors each day, on average. About 19 people have registered on the website, have created an account. And the people who registered are from all over. There are people from the United States, quite a few from Germany, from the Netherlands, from France, from Spain, mostly Western Europe. Well, 27 users have added new content. And I did expect when I started it that there would be many users who added just a few sites, but that was not how it worked. It was very other pattern came out. Yeah, over half of the people added more than 12 objects, and number one, the most active user, added nearly 2,000 objects. It's quite amazing. I never expected that it would work that way. And even number two added quite a lot of size. So now we have, going towards 13,000 geolocated objects. And when you see this data, it doesn't add up. That's because the data I show here is about manually added data. And I've also added a lot of data from the site that I obtained from other databases that are available on the website, from other free sources. Spent a lot of time finding data on Roman archaeology and trying to see if I could merge it into my own database. But I think about 3,000 objects have been added manually by people, including myself. Yeah. About the data sources. My first intention was to just start with my own local environment, and I expected that slowly it would grow to cover a bigger area. But then I already had the Roman route planner, which contained data from the whole Roman Empire, and so I decided, why not import it into the Wiki website? So I used that. The Omnisciae data the names are based on a set from Richard Tolbert. I use the Tabula Poitingiana.de website a lot. Wikipedia also sometimes for structured data imports. I used Pleiades. I wasn't aware of Pleiades when I started this project. It would have saved me a lot of time. I used geonames. Later on, an important source was the Livius.org website. I got a data donation from him. And I wrote a special tool to import data, especially for that data, because when you import data, you have to check that the location you are importing is not already on the website. And I also wanted to get an indication of the visibility of the objects I added. When you add an object to Wiki, You have to give a category, like for example, is it a vicus, or is it a villa, or is it a fort, or whatever. But you also have to add an indicator of the visibility, and it's very crude. It's just visible or not visible. People may decide what it means, but when I add data using my data import tool, I use Panoramio to see if there are any images from Roman objects. And of course I also check the satellite images from Google Maps, because very often you can see Roman objects already on Google Maps. Another important data source I just started to use is the Romac.org, which is a database of about 600 aqueducts, and there are also many tracings, quite spectacular. And I also work together with Johan Alveld from the Regnum Francorum project, who also created the tiles. We often share data. Yeah. I'd also like to mention, particularly, it's interesting to see the differences you have in how different countries approach heritage data, because in the UK they have excellent websites in very much detailed information, and it's great stuff to use. Very different from France, for example, where you have to search very hard, and also the Netherlands is not perfect. Okay, that was about the current state of affairs. I have a lot of plans to do with this site, but the big problem is I don't have that much time, so I'm all the time thinking, oh, what should I do next, what I should do next. But now the highest on my list is to create a feature for users to add lines like roads. Often people request me, I have this information on a road, can I add it? And of course I can add it to the site, but the users can't, so there should be a way to do that. That's the next thing I'm going to work on. For the Roman Road Planner, I've added Pleiades identifiers to be part of the Pelagios network. And I also want to do that for the Wiki website. And when I started this project, I was hardly a programmer. I was no programmer. Now I'm hardly a programmer. So the code quality, when a professional looks at it, I hope I hope it doesn't scare them off. So I want to work on that. And further now, you could say Wiki is a community website, but still there are no real community features. People can't see each other's email addresses, so they can't communicate with each other through email, and there's no such thing as a forum. So I think I can improve the website by adding community features to it. And like I said, on my requirements list was also version management. And I did implement that, but it's not visible in any way on the website now. So it might be good to have it more visible, to see what has changed in various markers. Well, finally, maybe that's not the best way to end the presentation because it's a bit negative, but there are some concerns, of course. When I started, like I told you, it was just playing around with stuff that's available on the internet, playing with Roman data, just for fun. But now it has become a bit more serious. A lot of people spend hours of time working on this website, so that made me responsible. That's never what I intended. So now I have concerns too. One thing is the data quality, and that can go two ways. I never expected that. But of course, too little, I was afraid of that. But too much quality is also a concern. Recently, somebody put information on my website, and a few days later, he asked me, please remove it, because I have been in contact with archaeologists with the data I added, and they said, please don't publish it yet, remove it, please. So that can be a problem too. And another thing is the copyright situation. It's very unclear, copyright situation, because on the text page, I copied Wikipedia as much as possible, so I say the license is Creative Commons attribute share alike. But I think that is valid for the text that people add. But I have some doubts if you could copyright things like a geo-coordinate. I don't think that's copyrightable at all, so there's not really a problem there, but things got more complex and I couldn't resist it when I added the data that was created by Kees Paschier from the ROMAC project. He has this great aqueduct tracings and he says, yeah, it's not for commercial use, so he uses a different license. I couldn't resist adding it, but so now if you want to use my data services, you should be warned, and I warn you now, but it's not yet on the site, that there are various copyright restrictions with the material. So that's a bit of a problem. Yeah, like I said, code quality. And yeah, I did ask this question to Elton also, yeah. I've become responsible now for what I created, so continuity is an issue I've been thinking about. Now I'm just one person doing this, and yeah, maybe I should, ideally there should be more people involved, or there should be an organization that gives me some kind of backup, or I'm thinking about a way to solve that. But I don't have the answer yet. It's not really urgent, but it's something I should think about. So that's the story I wanted to tell you. So, are there any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. I think we went down in terms of granularity to a one-person army that you embody in a way with your project, which is absolutely impressive, I think. In a way, also the way you started your presentation reminds me about the discussion about the digital self-empowering envisioned by the late 1960s, early 1970s discussion about personal computing and what it is good for, because the computing paradigm first was a paradigm for the closed world of the military-industrial complex in the United States, as it was discussed in Berkeley, the place where our friend Eric Kenza is today. And that was turned around to say into the liberating, self-empowering paradigm. And your way of starting your presentation with your kids and thinking about what you can do, and then trying to go that way, to go down that way, and add and add and add knowledge and yeah, ways to do things, is a wonderful example for that. And it is also giving a tough question to the institutions that hold and manage and produce knowledge. I mean, what you do could be seen by the foreign ministry or by any funding institution as a test how good and how accessible knowledge is that gets produced by taxpayers' money year in and year out. That means if institutions, also like the German Archaeological Institute, are able to put up their data, to provide their data in a way that you, the self-empowered digital citizen, can grab it and put it into your way of discourse, then we are okay. Then we did our job. If we don't, then we are not okay. And we have to change that. And your presentation also shows naturally that as a one-man army, you are able to proceed in a way that is much quicker and much, in the beginning, it's much quicker and easier to jumpstart what you want to do than bigger institutions can do that. And we have to find a way, you know, to catch up with your speed. While then, at the end of the race, you might get traces of exhaustion and look for, yeah, the slow but safe institutional savior that gives continuity to it. So I think that was a wonderful, is a wonderful thing. It was a wonderful presentation. And are there any questions now? Yeah, Artvin.
Touch with Duns. It's a very interesting institution in the Netherlands. They have a kind of national archaeological data center, and I'm wondering if you could collaborate with them or if they might support you.
Yeah, I have been in contact with them. They contacted me after I got a lot of publicity on the Roman route planner, and they asked me, can we get that data somehow? But then I didn't have the data in the right format. But after preparing my data for the Pelagios project, you could say now it is in a format probably they should be able to take in. So I should contact them again. That's yeah.
René, we talk about 1,200 and 500 objects you've located. If I remember correctly, nearly 7,500 by your own and nearly 5,000 by other people. How do you check the quality of the other people's additions, correctness, and so on? It's only you, or what about quality management?
Yeah, like I said, data quality is a bit of a concern. I almost every day look at the page that displays everything that has been added, and I look at it, but I don't open every new location that has been added. I open a lot, and it's too much for me to just check it and to be sure it's right. But there appears to have been no vandalism yet, so but when it grows, there might get vandalism. There might become, people might, I don't know. It's a concern. Yeah.
All right, other questions? No other questions. Yeah, Rasmus.
Okay, there's a question from the technical side. How does your infrastructure look like, and how would it behave if they're flooding the masses to your website?
Yeah. Okay, about my infrastructure, I'll go back to the first page of my presentation. Mapping Roman Empire from home. At home, at my place, I have a computer sitting in the cellar. It's quite old machine. It used to be a desktop, but then I put Ubuntu on it. Then it appeared to be really fast again. But I have a very fast internet connection too, so that's my infrastructure. So I really don't know what happens when a lot of people come there. Then would be interesting to see. Yeah.
Yep.
Other questions?
May I add two more remarks on your talk? One thing is about the work I did. The good thing is that I'm very short-sighted. When I knew at forehand how much work it would take to do all this, I would never have started. But I just took a step and I took another step. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if I take this step? And I always underestimated how much work each step would be. But every time it gave me a lot of energy. Whoa, this is cool. I should go on. So it's a good thing to be short-sighted and to play with data. That's a good thing.
Maybe find a way to work together, you and your project and Wikipedia, in a way that could be a good solution for both parts. We are able to give you a quality management to check all the coordinates, for example. I know you are working exactly, but there are some other people never use the reference, and there are errors about maybe 50 meters, maybe 100 meters by location. So we have to gather more manpower. You can use our data and our texts. Mm-hmm. Then your vision is, as I see, not only to present the data, but the text is to information, to pictures, to and so on. Yeah. We for example, have an archive of 3,000 pictures and plans. And I think that your site is a good place to share them there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It would be great to cooperate more. Like I said, when I started to look around on the internet, are there any tools I can use? The first thing I thought of was Wikipedia. Maybe it should be, my map should be just a front end on Wikipedia data. Perhaps the ideal picture is that now this Wikidata project started, or this Wikidata initiative. Maybe my data someday could be exported and imported into as Wikidata data, and then my site, or maybe it's not even my site anymore, could be just a thin layer on top of on the Wikipedia infrastructure. I think that would be the final picture, perhaps, to work towards.
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable, and it allows us to move on, not with a totally pessimistic view of had I known. Yeah. As you know, Silenus in antiquity is quoted by that what would be good for humans would be to die instantly, or even better, not ever having been born. We don't see it that way, and in terms of Wiki.org, Wikipedia is bringing us out of that